Have you ever wondered why, despite your best efforts, your relationship seems to be on the brink of collapse? Perhaps you felt an invisible wall growing between you and your partner, as if something unspoken is lurking, threatening to destroy everything you've built. The truth is, there's often a hidden secret, a psychological force at play that can silently chip away at the foundation of your love connection. It's not always about trust issues or betrayal. No, the secret often lies within the very patterns of communication and emotional exchange that you share. So think about it for a moment. How do you communicate with your partner on a daily basis? Do you truly listen to each other, or are you simply waiting for your turn to speak? This is one of the most fundamental issues that go unnoticed in many relationships. We have a tendency to think in terms of being heard rather than truly listening and understanding. And when this dynamic becomes the norm, it creates a growing disconnection between two people who may have once been deeply attuned to one another. Pause. What happens then is that small grievances build up. Small moments of disconnection, once dismissed as unimportant, begin to pile on top of each other, forming a heavy emotional burden that's difficult to bear. The emotional toll of these unsaid things is more than you realize. And without even realizing it, both you and your partner start retreating into your own worlds, becoming islands to each other instead of partners navigating life together. But here's where the real secret lies. This kind of disconnect often stems from unmet emotional needs. At the core of every human being is a deep desire to feel seen, heard, and valued. When these needs are not met, the bond you once had can slowly disintegrate. The problem, however, is that these needs aren't always explicitly communicated. They're often buried under layers of pride, insecurity, or fear of rejection. Pause. This is where things get tricky. Even though you may think your partner knows what you need or want, without direct communication, your emotional needs can remain invisible, slowly festering in silence. It's like an emotional wound that, if not treated, becomes infected. And the longer you go without acknowledging these needs, the harder it becomes to repair the damage. This is the hidden secret that can slowly erode the love you share. You may also find that as time goes on, you begin to take each other for granted. This can happen without even realizing it. When you've been together for a while, there's a comfort that sets in, which, while comforting, can also be dangerous. When you stop appreciating your partner, when you stop actively showing them how much they mean to you, it creates a sense of neglect, and neglect is one of the quickest ways to destroy a relationship. This isn't about grand gestures or big romantic acts. It's about the little things: a kind word, an unexpected act of kindness, a moment of emotional vulnerability. When these things disappear, when the routine of life becomes all-consuming, the emotional connection between partners begins to fade. Without regular reaffirmation of your love, the sense of emotional security your partner once felt begins to erode. Pause. You may also notice that instead of communicating directly, you and your partner begin to communicate indirectly through passive-aggressive remarks or through the absence of words altogether. This is a coping mechanism that people often resort to when they feel their emotional needs are not being met. But instead of bringing the issue to the forefront and dealing with it, passive-aggressive behavior only deepens the rift between you. And over time, it becomes harder to break the cycle. This is another secret to the breakdown of love, the fear of vulnerability. No one likes to feel exposed or weak, but vulnerability is the cornerstone of intimacy. When you withhold your true thoughts, feelings, or desires, you unknowingly build a wall around yourself, and this wall becomes a barrier to true emotional connection. Both partners need to feel safe enough to open up, to share their inner worlds without fear of judgment or rejection. When that safety is compromised, the relationship begins to crumble. Another hidden force that can destroy a love connection is resentment. Over time, unresolved conflicts can build up, creating a sense of bitterness that colors every interaction. You may have forgiven your partner for a past mistake, but that doesn't mean the emotional impact has been fully dealt with. If resentment is left unchecked, it can poison every conversation, every touch, and every interaction. And eventually, it becomes the lens through which you view each other, and love can no longer survive in that environment. And let's not forget the impact of external stressors. Relationships often bear the weight of financial pressures, work stress, and family dynamics. While it's natural to experience challenges in life, when these stressors are not addressed together as a couple, they can create a sense of isolation. You may feel like you're in this fight alone, and that's a dangerous place to be. A partnership is meant to be a team, and when one person feels alone in their struggles, it can create a deep divide between two people who should be working together. Pause. The secret, however, is not to avoid stress or conflict, but to navigate it together. The true strength of a relationship lies not in its ability to avoid difficulty, but in its ability to weather storms together. When you approach life's challenges as a unified force, your bond strengthens, but when stress is handled in isolation, it becomes yet another wedge between you. Love also needs to grow and evolve. Relationships are dynamic, and so are the people in them. If you stop growing together, your connection stagnates. You may find yourself feeling like you no longer recognize the person you're with. They've changed, you've changed, and yet you're still holding on to an outdated version of each other. This mismatch can lead to feelings of frustration and confusion, but growth doesn't have to mean drifting apart. It can mean adapting together, supporting each other as you both become the people you're meant to be. Emotional intimacy is another key element that can silently slip away without notice. It's not just about being physically close to each other, it's about being emotionally attuned. When you stop sharing your thoughts, your fears, and your dreams, you stop being emotionally present for your partner. And when emotional intimacy is lost, so too is the sense of closeness that makes a relationship feel meaningful. One of the greatest mistakes couples make is assuming that their partner knows them as well as they know themselves. But the truth is, we change constantly. Our desires, our needs, and our fears evolve. If you're not regularly checking in with each other, if you're not making space for each other's growth and transformation, you may find that you've drifted far apart without even realizing it. Plus, in many cases, couples find themselves stuck in a cycle of unhealthy patterns that seem impossible to break. This could include unhealthy ways of managing conflict, such as yelling, shutting down, or withdrawing. The longer these patterns persist, the harder it becomes to change them. But it's not impossible. Recognizing these patterns and seeking to understand why they exist is the first step in breaking the cycle and rebuilding a healthier relationship. Another hidden force that can destroy your love connection is the simple lack of appreciation. People often assume that love alone is enough to keep a relationship strong, but love needs to be nurtured. It needs to be actively expressed. When one person feels unappreciated, when their efforts go unnoticed or unacknowledged, it creates a sense of emotional neglect that can slowly wear away at the bond between partners. And finally, we must address the subtle role that self-worth plays in a relationship. When you don't feel good about yourself, it becomes nearly impossible to give your partner the love they deserve. Low self-esteem, insecurity, and past emotional wounds can all color the way you interact with your partner. In many cases, people begin to subconsciously sabotage their relationships because they don't believe they deserve happiness. This hidden belief can prevent love from flourishing. Pause. So what is the solution? It begins with awareness. Recognizing the hidden factors that may be silently destroying your connection is the first step toward healing. It takes communication, vulnerability, and a commitment to growth. It requires a willingness to address the emotional wounds and unspoken needs that both partners carry. But with this awareness comes the opportunity for transformation. If both partners are willing to do the work, there is always hope. Love can be restored and deeper connections can be formed. In the end, the secret isn't so much about finding love, it's about nurturing and protecting it. The true challenge isn't in love's arrival, but in its maintenance. When you prioritize your emotional connection, when you make room for each other's growth and needs, love becomes a living thing, vibrant, resilient, and capable of weathering any storm.